Another thing I told him to do was go out and meet people. So, and he did that. First thing he did was fall into the trap that many expats do, and that's fall in love with a bar waitress. This is a story about Bob from America dating in Vietnam. What's up, JJ the Lonely Bull in Asia, here at Da Nang, Vietnam, at one of my favorite coffee places. It's called Echo Green. It's at the base of the hotel, Echo Green Hotel, but I've got my little healthy breakfast here, eggs, avocado, toast, a little bacon. Makes it not so healthy, but I'll take it. And a little salad. I don't know if you saw that or not. You can see that. Anyway, and my Americano hot coffee. Whole thing costs right about $7 US. So a little on the pricey side for Da Nang, but it's good food, and it's right down the street from where I'm at, where my apartment is, here in An Thuong 3, in An Thuong in Da Nang. So, but let's talk about Bob. I met Bob back in January. He's American, and we got to talking, and he was telling me a story about dating and the frustration he was having. So I'll tell you the frustration he was having, and then I'll give you an update, because I just spoke to him the other day, and I'm using the name Bob. Bob's not his real name, but we'll just keep it at that. Anyway, so when I was talking to him about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, he was telling me the frustrations he was having being here in Da Nang, Vietnam, as far as dating. He was strictly on dating sites, and he would say he was running into these main problems. One is they were either transactional or pay for play, which isn't quite as prevalent here in Vietnam as it is in Thailand or the Philippines, but still it has that element on the dating sites. So he's running into that problem. And that's not what he was looking for. He's looking for a girlfriend. He's looking for a relationship. The other problem is that a lot of these girls he would meet, and they didn't have any English at all, any English proficiency at all. So they would just sit there, and at that time he didn't have a translator, so it would be very awkward. And then the other thing was he would talk to these girls for quite a while on these dating sites and have good conversations with them, and maybe move to another site like a WhatsApp or something like that, or Line or something, and they would communicate, and they would have great conversations. But when it came to actually meeting, they would ghost him. They wouldn't show up. So I told him I think part of that problem is the English proficiency. It's not like they're playing games with you. I don't think that's the case. I think the case was that they were afraid to meet in person because their English language wasn't very good, and they were embarrassed to come and meet you in person. It's not that they didn't want to. I think there was just some embarrassment. So, and it's easy to talk online because you can translate anything you say before you send it. So I told him what I would do. And I've done videos on this before, but basically I said, go out and meet people. So I suggested get in groups, and he did that. And he told me recently, he said, I did the group thing first, and I met a lot of good people in groups, but the problem was these groups were great, and they met regularly, and he got to know a lot of people and made some friends, but the majority of them were foreigners, were expats. And that's not what he wanted. He wants to meet a Vietnamese woman because he thinks they're beautiful, and I tend to agree with that. So these groups weren't really working for him, at least the groups he joined. Now, there may be groups out there that have a mixture of foreigners and locals, but he didn't find any of those. And I think he just went on Facebook and joined groups through that. I'm not sure. But anyway, so that didn't work. So another thing I told him to do was go out and meet people. So, and he did that. First thing he did was fall into the trap that many expats do, and that's fall in love with a bar waitress. Now, the bar waitresses here in Vietnam, especially here in Da Nang, aren't like the ones you see in Bangkok or in Pattaya or in certain places in the Philippines. Those bar girls are transactional. You know, they work for money, they work for pay for play. Most of them you can bar fine, but it's not like that here. They don't have that here in Da Nang. They don't have that red light district, so to speak, here in Da Nang. So if that's what you're looking for, Da Nang's not the place to go. But anyway, but he was in love with this bar waitress, and the problem is, I told him, it's like, do you know how many guys, foreign guys, hit on these waitresses on a daily basis? Probably 90% of their customers. So they're used to that. And you know, Bob, let me tell you a little bit about Bob. He's 60 some years old, but he doesn't look like he's 60. He looks younger. He looks like he's in his maybe late 40s, maybe 50, early 50s, something like that. So he looks a lot younger than he actually is, and he's not overweight, and he's a decent looking dude. But I told him, I said, unless you're a total Chad and like 25, 30 years old, these bar waitresses probably aren't going to go out with you, you know, and even then they might not go out with you unless you're, you know, throwing out the cash or the ATM card, and then they might go date you, but then that becomes transactional. But they're not looking, I don't think that's what they want. They're not looking for that. And so he's kind of barking up the wrong tree there when he's looking at bar waitresses to date or become a girlfriend. It's the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, because he's going out and it's easy to meet those girls because they talk to them. They talk to him. That's the easy part, but dating them is a different thing. So that's probably not going to happen. So the next thing I said, you know, go out and actually talk to people on the street, you know. And so he did that. And the first thing that happened was he'd be walking along the boardwalk there at the beach, and he'd see a pretty Vietnamese girl, and he would say hi, and he was shocked that they say hi back. And at first he was kind of shy. That was basically all he did, was say hello, and then he'd move on. Then he got a little more brave, and he would extend that conversation to how are you, or where are you from, or things like that. And he found that they were interested in having that conversation with him. So he got to a point where he asked a girl for her contact number, and if it would be okay if he contacted her and set up a time to go out for a date. So it worked. He got a number, and she was okay with going on a date with him. So he checked in with me, and he said, we went on a date. It was great. She didn't speak much English, so he had his phone app translator, and she had hers. So they exchanged. But he said she was beautiful, and she complimented him. She said he has beautiful eyes. So he was thrilled about that. So he thought that was great, and they've gone on 2 other dates since. So good on them. Now, they haven't got to a point yet where it's serious, but I'll talk about that process later on in the video. So stick around for how to get to that point. The other thing he did was he talked to his apartment owner, and he just met her. He never met her in person when he first moved in. He went through a realtor or an agent, and but he came home one day, and she was sitting outside of the apartment complex, and she introduced herself, and she didn't speak a lot of English either, but he had her WhatsApp contact, so because they were always in contact with each other, she gave him a nice smile and said hello, and so he thought, well, what the heck? He got a little more brave. So Bob, the brave little toaster, messaged her and asked her out, and she said yes. So she said she's very busy because she owned a lot of units, a lot of buildings in the city, so she's well off. And she said, let's meet for lunch. So they had lunch, and he said they had a really nice conversation, and he asked her out again, and she said, when you come back, we'll go out. So that tells me something, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But the whole story with Bob is that he kind of came out of his shell, and he abandoned the dating sites, and he abandoned the bar waitresses, and now he's brave enough to just talk to people on the street, which is fantastic, and he's had good success. Now, let's talk about the cons about dating in Vietnam, here in Da Nang. First of all, the language barrier. It's tremendous. It's a huge barrier, even more so than in Thailand, and especially more so in the Philippines. You'll not find very many women here in Da Nang that speak a lot of English. Now, if you're in the retail places like the bars or the restaurants, those girls speak a little bit of English, so it's enough to get by. But if you're just meeting someone on the street, the chances of them speaking good English is probably pretty slim. So you're going to run into that issue just like Bob did, that you're going to have a date with someone and you're going to have to use that phone app, that translator, to have a conversation. Now, that may be a deal breaker or a non-starter for a lot of you. That might be something that, oh, I can't deal with that. Or you may think you can, and then when you get into it, then you realize, no, I really can't deal with that. That's just too much trouble to go through. So, may or may not be a deal breaker for you, but that's there. It's something that's real, that language barrier. If you're looking for a relationship and you want to be able to speak English and you want your girl to speak English, probably Vietnam is not the place to be. Philippines is probably a better choice for you, okay? Age gap is another thing. Age gap is another issue that's probably going to rear its ugly head, because if you're someone like Bob, even though he looks younger, he's not going to be able to date those 20-somethings like you can in the Philippines and to some extent in Thailand. That age gap is not going to be as prevalent here. So if that's something you're looking for, if you're an older foreigner or expat, you want to date young girls, Vietnam's probably not the place to be. Now, if you're somebody like Bob who looks like he's in his 40s, you can date someone in their 30s without much of a problem. Now, the other thing is, you really have to live here because these Vietnamese women are very traditional and they don't want a holiday boyfriend. They will take it very slow, and it's going to be a lot of dating and a lot of courting before they will even spend the night with you, okay? So they want to make sure you actually live here. They're not going to date somebody that's going to be gone in a month or 2 months or even 3 months, you know, with a 90-day visa. They want to make sure you're coming back, or you're going to stay here. So that's kind of what I told Bob with this landlady that said, we'll do our next date when you come back, because he's leaving. He's got his 90 days coming up. So she said, we'll date again when you come back, because she wants to make sure he is coming back before she goes another step, okay? So that's kind of the 3 cons about dating in Vietnam. They could be cons, they may not be. I mean, if you can deal with it, deal with it. If you can handle the patience, if you are a patient man, as far as the number of dates before you get real serious, being someone who actually lives here, and the language issue, if you can deal with those 3 things, then you're in a good spot, because Vietnamese women are beautiful, they're loyal, they're traditional, they're marriage material, if that's what you're looking for. And that's what they're looking for the most part. And they want to find somebody that their family, parents, and that will accept. So that's another thing. So there's my tips. That's Bob's story. What do you think? Leave in the comments below. If you've got similar stories or if you've got advice for Bob, be kind as always. And like, share, and subscribe. And hit that like button too, because it really helps the algorithm, really helps my channel. I do appreciate it. And making those comments too helps the algorithm. And as always, live life, my friend, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.